So let's talk about AI. There's this feeling in the air, right? A kind of deep unease that goes beyond the usual headlines. Today, we're going to dig into why that feeling isn't just about jobs or money, it's about the very moral story our society tells itself to feel, well, fair.
We all feel the anxiety swirling around AI. But it's not just about robots taking our jobs or a few tech companies getting even richer. The argument we're exploring today is that this threat, it's much, much deeper. It actually strikes at the very foundation of how we've agreed to live together.
See, the real reason this feels so different, so unsettling, is that AI isn't just changing the economy. It's acting like a chemical agent that's dissolving the philosophical bedrock, the moral justification that made our whole system feel legitimate for the last 100 years.
Think about it. For decades, we've had this, let's call it a shared narrative about fairness. We've argued about it constantly, of course, but the basic story was there. AI isn't just writing a new chapter in that story, it feels like it's ripping the pages out and setting the whole book on fire.
Okay, so to really get what's breaking, we first have to understand the rules of the old game. And honestly, you can boil down the entire modern debate about what's fair to an epic intellectual showdown between two philosophical heavyweights.
All right, in one corner, you've got John Rawls. His whole thing was, look, inequality can be okay, but only if the system is designed to lift up the people at the very, very bottom. In the other corner, Robert Nozick. He was like, nope, as long as you got your money through fair and voluntary deals, no cheating, no force, then whatever the outcome is, it's just, period. These two guys basically set the goalpost for the entire conversation.
But here is the fascinating part. These two thinkers, total polar opposites, right? They built their entire worldviews on one shared, absolutely non-negotiable moral line in the sand, one rule you could never cross.
And that line was all about preventing something called instrumentalization. It's a big word for a really simple, powerful idea. You cannot treat another human being as a mere tool, as a cog in a machine. This was the one thing both of their philosophies were designed from the ground up to stop.
This idea goes way back to the philosopher Immanuel Kant, and it became the moral bedrock for the whole debate. People have their own goals, their own dignity. They aren't just raw material for someone else's project. They are ends in themselves.
So where does AI fit into this? Well, this is where it gets really disruptive. AI doesn't pick a side in the old debate between Rawls and Nozick. Instead, it just stomps right over that one sacred rule they both agreed on.
Let me walk you through it. An artist creates something beautiful. A writer pours their soul into a story. A programmer builds a clever piece of code. That's step one, your talent is expressed. Then, step two, that work is harvested, scraped from the internet as data. Step three, it's fed into an AI model to train it. And here's the kicker, step four, you, the original creator, you are not a beneficiary. You're not even a participant in the process.
This is the textbook definition of instrumentalization. Your creative work, your very talent, is being used as a pure tool. It's not for the benefit of the least advantaged, so it fails Rawls's test, and it is certainly not with your voluntary consent, so it fails Nozick's absolute requirement. You've been turned into raw material.
This philosophical breakdown creates an even bigger societal problem. It completely shatters the popular story our culture has told itself to justify inequality, the myth of meritocracy. We all know this story, even if we're a little skeptical of it. The idea that wealth is connected to admirable human qualities. Someone took a big risk, they worked incredibly hard, they spent a decade developing a rare skill. It's a story that, at least, has a certain moral logic to it.
So what's the new justification? What's the story for the immense wealth being generated by AI? It is brutally, chillingly simple. It's not about skill or effort. It's just, I own the servers.
This new justification just feels so hollow. Because it is. It's completely disconnected from any of the human qualities we value. Talent, effort, contribution. It is pure capital ownership, totally divorced from any recognizable virtue.
And this is why it's so destabilizing. Societies can actually tolerate a surprising amount of inequality if people believe, on some level, that it's earned. But what they don't tolerate, what history shows us they won't stand for, is inequality that feels completely arbitrary, based on pure luck, or worse, that feels like a kind of theft.
So this brings us to this critical moment. We are facing the prospect of massive, staggering inequality, without even a flimsy story to justify it.
This presents us with a fundamental choice as a society, and believe me, the clock is ticking.
Right now, today, there's still enough distributed power economically and politically to make real choices about who controls this technology and how its incredible benefits are shared. But that window is closing, and it's closing fast. Once that wealth and control gets even more concentrated, trying to change the rules becomes nearly impossible.
And we can't just fall back on the old solutions from the 20th century. Union negotiations, minimum wage laws, all of those compromises were built on the bedrock assumption that labor has power, that workers have leverage. The whole point of this new wave of AI is to methodically remove that very assumption from the equation.
So, that leaves us with the final, defining question of our time. The old story of fairness is broken. The old rules no longer apply. With those moral justifications gone, we have to decide, and decide quickly, what new story, what new rules we are going to replace them with.